Hi everyone, welcome. You are watching Eagle News. I am Rose Papa Angeles in Washington. It's Saturday, March 12, 2022, here in the nation's capital. This week's stories: President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia has created a humanitarian disaster in Ukraine. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says Russian President Vladimir Putin should end the senseless war in Ukraine. The District of Columbia and local unions sign a workers' pay hike deal. Pennsylvanians are urged to protect their families against tick-borne diseases. On Correspondent-At-Large, Russia targets a maternity hospital in Mariupol. Gas prices are skyrocketing in North America. Residents of a World Heritage Site Goree are complaining of plastic waste dumped by tourists. It's called daylight saving time. On Down to Earth, nations reaching a landmark treaty to end the scourge of plastic waste. On Learning Curve, Bahrain joins the US-led Artemis Accords. Plus, millions in Panama return to in-person classes. And California colleges and universities are struggling with student housing. On EBC Sports International, Yankees top draft pick Anthony Volpe and his parents chime in on the pressure of being a high-profile athlete in New York. On Color My World, a local group in Corpus Christi, Texas, brings together bank experts and young adults for some finance basics seminars. Several stories on Oceania at a glance: New South Wales enduring the impact of the recent historic flooding. And how Southeast Queensland is moving forward after the major floods. Plus, in Papua New Guinea, Port Moresby celebrating International Women's Day. Still on Women's Day, the City of Toronto celebrates with adding new content to its Herstory program. And this is really exciting. On this week's Glow Up, we will be racing the Brow Bar. Our coverage begins now. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia is hiring murderers from Syria to fight in Ukraine. This after Moscow said fighters from the war-torn nation would be allowed to join Russian forces. In a video statement on Telegram, Zelensky says, and these are his words, it's a war with a very stubborn enemy.
Через постійні обстріли в частинах Сумської, Київської, Донецької областей немає електрики. Так, є проблеми з теплом, немає газу, води. Це гуманітарна катастрофа. Гуманітарна катастрофа – два слова, які стали повноцінним синонімом інших двох слів. Російська Федерація.
Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg calls on Russian President Vladimir Putin to what he calls a war that makes no sense.
Russia should, and President Putin should end this senseless war, withdraw all its forces, and engage in good faith in diplomatic political efforts to find a political solution. And the first step should be to guarantee humanitarian corridors where people can get out and medicine, food can get in.
What about Ukraine's request for a no-fly zone? Stoltenberg says that's not an option.
To impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine will entail that NATO has to take out Russian air defense systems, not only in Ukraine but also Belarus and Russia. It will mean that we need to be ready to shoot down Russian planes, because a no-fly zone is not only something you declare, you have to impose it.
Here in Washington, government employees in the District of Columbia are smiling after their unions inked a 4-year deal. Eagle News correspondent Jeff Sanidad says the new contract will give workers a 12% pay raise over the life of the contract.
Mayor Bowser, joined by representatives for the Compensation Units 1 and 2, signs a 4-year collective bargaining agreement serving more than 11,000 employees across district government. Compensation Units 1 and 2 represents 20 local unions and 7 labor organizations supporting DC government career service employees who make up professional, technical, administrative, clerical, trade and craft employees delivering some of the district's most integral services. Mayor Bowser says the agreement demonstrates continued commitment to support public servants who deliver for district's residents every day. The agreement ensures 4 years of wage stability for DC government employees. The agreement includes a 3.5% bonus in fiscal year 2022, a 2.5% pay raise in fiscal year 2023, and a 3% raise in fiscal years 2024 and 2025. It also increases the funds set aside for the Negotiated Employee Assistance Home Purchase Program, or the NEAHP, to $650,000. NEAHP provides financial assistance with down payments and closing costs for government employees looking to purchase a home in DC. The last time an agreement was reached was in February of 2018. The district's Department of Human Resources, or DCHR, is also hosting its first event of 2022, the New Year, New Career Virtual Hiring Fair on Wednesday, March 16 and Thursday, March 17. Jeff Sanidad, Eagle News, Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Jeff. In other news, people in Pennsylvania are being warned about tick-borne diseases that state health authorities say are becoming more common. More on that story from Bureau Chief Myla Simbulan.
As we say goodbye to winter, Pennsylvanians experiencing spring fever, that perennial urge to venture outdoors to hike, hunt, fish, and explore, should include in their plans how to protect themselves and their families against potentially serious tick-borne diseases. These include Lyme disease and the rare but dangerous deer tick virus, or DTV, which has been found in ticks at high levels for the first time in multiple locations around the state. The DTV positive ticks have been discovered during routine testing as part of the Department of Environmental Protection, or DEP's active tick surveillance program. This is a 5-year pilot program that began in 2018. Surveys are conducted in every county in Pennsylvania to track ticks' habitats, life stages, and peak activity levels, and to test them for human pathogenic diseases. Fall and winter surveillance focuses on analyzing adult black-leg ticks for emerging and changing disease burdens in public use habitats across Pennsylvania, such as parks, playgrounds, recreational fields, and state game lands. The deer tick virus, which is a type of Powassan virus, is rare in the United States. However, positive cases have increased in recent years. It is spread to people primarily by bites from infected ticks, but does not spread person to person through coughing, sneezing, or touching. Powassan virus can be transmitted from tick to human in as little as 15 minutes after a bite occurs. Other tick-borne diseases, such as Lyme disease, take much longer, at least 24 hours, to cause infection. There are no vaccines to prevent or medicines to treat Powassan viruses. Preventing tick bites is the best way to reduce risk of infection and disease.
Benefits of recreating outside in Pennsylvania. So first, it all starts with your clothing. Wear light-colored clothes so that you can see a tick when it's on you and remove it before it reaches contact with your skin. Treat your clothes with permethrin-based insect repellents to push the ticks away. Tuck your pants into your socks and your shirt into your pants to create a seal against ticks. Walk in the middle of the trail to minimize contact with vegetation and tall grass. This will also help you avoid poison ivy when you're out there. Stop regularly and give yourself and your friends a quick visual examination to see if any ticks have gotten on your clothes. And when you get home, make sure to conduct a thorough tick check, a full body tick check. Sometimes this involves a mirror or some help to look for ticks. Check your scalp, check your ears, check your armpits, your belt line, check your belly button, in between your legs, other hidden places. That's where the ticks like to bite.
Initial symptoms of a DTV infection may include fever, headache, vomiting, and weakness. Some people infected with DTV experience no symptoms, and therefore infection may go undetected. However, 91% of patients treated for DTV infections develop severe neuroinvasive disease. Myla Simbulan, Eagle News, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Myla. This week, our correspondent-at-large Thomas I. Likeness comments on the war in Ukraine, plastic pollution of the coast of West Africa, and how to correctly refer to the semi-annual time change in North America.
And now news and commentary from around the globe. As the war in Ukraine continues, Russia has stepped up attacks on civilian targets. The latest, a maternity hospital in the city of Mariupol. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who you see here on the screen, justifies the bombing. Lavrov claims the hospital has been used as a base for nationalists. The head of the World Health Organization, well, he has a different view. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says it's a war crime, pure and simple.
I reiterate, the attacks on hospitals, medical personnel, and medical transports are forbidden under international humanitarian law. Any such attacks are grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions.
Meanwhile, the folks in Russia are being told of their country's humanitarian efforts. The state-controlled RT, Russia Today television network, boasted how the military is handing out 430 tons of food and essentials. They call it a humanitarian gesture. What the network doesn't tell people is how many tons of bombs have been dropped on Ukraine and how many Ukrainian civilians have been buried as the war continues. In Russia, clearly a one-sided view in a country where dissenting opinions are severely punished. Fallout from the war is being felt worldwide. The most noticeable this week in North America has been the sharp jump in gasoline prices. Up here in Canada, in the West Coast province of British Columbia, gasoline is going for as much as $2.10 a liter, with fears it will rise even more. Now, let me convert that for my American friends. That works out to more than $6.20 a gallon. Expect to see the price of everything else to go up as shipping costs rise. You know, it costs more to fill up those transport trucks that haul the goods. For the last 2 years now, the pandemic has kept us all at home, and now it appears skyrocketing fuel prices may also keep us housebound. On the coast of West Africa, off Senegal's coast, is the island of Goree. It's a tiny, car-free community, and hundreds of years ago it was known for its role in the slave trade. Now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it attracts tourists. And with those tourists comes garbage, especially plastic. You know, plastic is the present-day enemy in Goree. The island attracts hundreds of visitors daily, visitors who have apparently no regard for their surroundings. Residents complain tourists throw their plastic waste all over the island, despite rubbish bins being readily available. A large part of that debris is empty water bottles. The head of sanitation on the island says they pick up the garbage every day, and he says they take more than 700 tons of it to landfills on the mainland every 2 days. The litter is fouling the island's coastlines. The garbage is carried away by high tides, polluting the ocean and driving away fish. People there used to be able to fish off the coast. Now they have to go out at least 3 kilometers to catch anything. Plastic. What are you doing to reduce its impact on where you live? Let's lighten up a bit. I'm going to go with my superficial rant for this week. You know, in most of North America, this weekend we will be changing our clocks. We move them an hour forward. It's called daylight saving time. Gives us more daylight hours in the evening. Daylight saving time. Saving, not savings. Drives me crazy every time I hear daylight savings time. There's no S appended to the word saving. So daylight saving time. I'll be back in 7 days on daylight saving time. And in the meantime, I wish you all peace, joy, and happiness in the ensuing week. Thomas I. Likeness, Correspondent-At-Large, Eagle News.
Thanks, Thomas. Once viewed as a breakthrough that would alter people's lives for the better, plastic has now become a threat to human existence. Eagle News correspondent Melissa Podes tells us about the latest global effort to fight plastic pollution.
The use of plastics has grown exponentially since the 1950s. It is estimated that 300 million tons of plastic waste are produced every year, with majority ending up in landfills or the oceans. At the resumed 5th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, which recently took place in Nairobi, Kenya, nations were urged to adopt a global landmark treaty to reduce plastic pollution. Inger Anderson, Executive Director of the UN Environment Program, spoke on the impact a treaty like this will have on the future of our planet.
That we will by then have agreed on the pathway to a new agreement that will have legally binding and presumably other dimensions to it too, of how we're going to deal with with plastic pollution, which is absolutely critical. So this is a big moment. This is one for the history books. We're going to push very hard. The beauty of this resolution, the one that has a large number of sponsors, originated from where? Peru and Rwanda. And that is important because it is not the North sort of telling the South what to do. It is the South saying, hey world, we have a problem and this problem needs a global solution. And that's very, very powerful.
Huge responsibility sits on our shoulders at this resumed session of the 5th UN Environment Assembly, a responsibility to deliver solutions to the triple planetary crisis, the crisis of climate change, the crisis of nature and biodiversity loss, and the crisis of pollution and waste.
Highlighting the critical role nature plays in our lives and in the sustainable development of society, the economy, and environment, the overall theme for NEA 5 was strengthening actions for nature to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Melissa Potes, Down to Earth, Eagle News.
Thank you, Melissa. Reduce, reuse, recycle. In another story, the Kingdom of Bahrain in the Persian Gulf is the latest country to sign on to the Artemis program. Bureau Chief Philip Toledo has the details.
NASA's Artemis program, aiming to land the first woman and person of color to the moon, invited another country to its collaboration, Bahrain. Recently, the CEO of Bahrain's National Space Science Agency, Dr. Mohammed Al-Asiri, signed the Artemis Accords on behalf of the Kingdom of Bahrain. There are 16 other countries that have already joined, and Bahrain is now the third in the Middle East with Israel and the UAE. The signing occurred after a successful launch of the Light 3 aircraft the NSSA developed in partnership with the UAE. According to the NASA release, the Artemis Accords were established in 2020 by NASA to reinforce the 1967 Treaty on Principles Governing the Activities of States in the Exploration and Use of Outer Space, including the Moon and other celestial bodies, otherwise known as the Outer Space Treaty. Major components are a commitment to transparency, setting of international standards of interoperability of space equipment, emergency assistance to astronauts in need, registration of space objects, and the release of scientific data. Ultimately, NASA says the goal of the Accords is for NASA and its international partners to establish safe, peaceful, and a prosperous future in space. More countries are expected to join in the following months and years. For more information, visit the Artemis Accords webpage on nasa.gov. Philip Toledo, Learning Curve, Eagle News.
Thanks, Philip. After 2 years of virtual and blended learning due to the pandemic, almost 1 million students in the Central American country of Panama are back at their desks in classrooms. Schools have been closed since March 2020, when the first case of COVID was discovered in Panama. And with rare exception, all learning was done online. As school bells ring across the country, the Ministry of Education is taking no chances and has implemented strict rules. They include basic measures such as mandatory mask use, teachers and students' health monitoring, strict entrance, exit, and recess schedules, and limits on visitors to schools. Panama is one of the countries with the highest vaccination rate in the region. Nearly 80% of students over 12 years of age and 35% of children between 5 and 11 years immunized against COVID-19. Back here in the U.S., colleges and universities in California are turning away hundreds of students. As Eagle News correspondent Ivan Trey Sanchez explained, it is not because they fail to meet admission requirements, but because there is no place for them to live.
At the University of California at Berkeley, the situation is so bad that the school has been forced to turn away a third of its applicants for the fall session. The issue is a 1970 state law requiring an environmental review of construction projects to determine their effect on the community.
What that means for college students is before they can expand their dormitories, the community has a say on whether the project can proceed. In Berkeley, residents successfully opposed a campus housing project. The university then asked the state Supreme Court to exempt it from the law, but a judge said no. The problem affects more than just students at Berkeley. It is statewide. Nearly 1 million students enrolled in colleges in California are scrambling to find affordable housing. College dorms are packed, and off-campus housing, if there is any available, is expensive. The problem is now in the hands of state lawmakers. California State Senator Scott Wiener has introduced legislation to exempt the schools from the review process.
Even if the legislator passes Wiener's proposed bill, it will be too late to do anything about the situation for this fall. And it takes time to build housing, so it could be years before the supply of dorm rooms meets the demand. Meanwhile, the dreams and aspirations of thousands of students, many from underrepresented populations and low-income families, go unfulfilled. Ivan Sanchez III, Eagle News, Los Angeles.
Thanks, Ivan. Now we move on to part 3 of our interview series with the Yankees' top draft pick, Anthony Volpe, and his family. This week, they will share with Eagle News how they use the pressure of becoming a high-profile athlete to their advantage. Bureau Chief Carlo Valdez reports.
New York City. Concrete jungle where dreams are made of. Because if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. For professional athletes, the pressure of playing in a large market like the Big Apple can be quite overwhelming, with high expectations. Players are either well loved or highly criticized. But the pressure of being in a high-profile team like the Yankees doesn't faze Anthony Volpe.
I think pressure, like they always say, like pressure is a privilege, and I feel like that's the reason why I work so hard. You want to be in those pressure cooker moments. You want to be batting in the bottom of the ninth of the World Series. Like, that's why you do it. So I feel like the better you play, the harder you work, the more pressure is going to be put on you. And you know, that's what I want. That's what you play for. That's what makes the game to me so much fun. So
the Yankees are Major League Baseball's most successful franchise, winning a record-breaking 27 World Series titles. The Bronx Bombers have many legendary players who are enshrined in baseball's Hall of Fame. One of the Yankees' most legendary players is Derek Jeter. Jeter spent his entire 20-year career with New York, winning 5 World Series titles, and is the favorite player of Anthony's mother, Isabel.
I remember him saying to all the security people that he's going to sign every single one of the people who was online, even though it was past, you know, the closing out time. He said, let everyone stay that paid, money to see me, and I'll sign all the autographs. So that was kind of like cool. That's the kind of like player that you want your son to be like.
Anthony's father, Michael, hopes his son can be like the former Yankees captain and Hall of Fame shortstop, on and off the field.
In order to be really great at baseball, you have to really, really believe. You can't just say it to yourself that you're the best player on the field. But on the other hand, you don't want to be a cocky person. So my expression for Anthony was always like, you want to be cocky on the inside, but humble on the outside. And I think that's the kind of player Derek Jeter was.
Yeah.
New York sports fans embrace all athletes who play for their hometown teams. If and when Anthony makes his debut, fans will warm up and welcome him with open arms. Carlo Valdez, EBC Sports International, New Jersey.
Thanks, Carlo, and thank you, Anthony. Money management. It's something many people struggle with. Seems there is never enough and too many bills. Bureau Chief Jane Kathleen Gregorio tells us about a program being offered to high school students in a Texas city that teaches them how to handle their money wisely.
Imagine going back in time and learning how to manage money wisely from a young age. How this knowledge could have helped many people currently struggling with debt to have developed better money habits, thereby avoiding the mistakes leading to lifelong money struggles. According to the Federal Reserve, the average American household debt has risen to a record of $14.6 trillion in 2021.
Here in Corpus Christi, Texas, students and their families get the opportunity to learn Financing 101 for free.
To help give the next generation and their families the tools to better navigate their finances, Leadership Corpus Christi, in collaboration with Workforce Solutions, hosted a financial literacy seminar with leading experts from the banking industry, providing tips on money management, budgeting, saving, and investing. High school and college students, together with their families, were invited to spend the day learning about financial basics, a subject not typically taught in most grade schools.
Earns a very low interest rate. So we don't want to use cash solely for our example retirement goal. We need something that's going to be working for us more aggressively.
This event was the brainchild of organizer Adriana Armanderez, a member of Leadership Corpus Christi, which is a training program for emerging and existing leaders to develop a stronger community.
I came up with this concept because I feel like it is the #1 way to impact and affect every single person in my community. Having the knowledge and skills, working with money, taking care of your money, and taking care of yourself only impacts all the families here that we care about in the Coastal Bend. Our young people actually have a lot more responsibilities placed on them now. They are working, going to high school, and contributing to their families now. They're looking at buying cars, they're looking at what is my next step, is it trade school, is it college, is it career? So whether you're making $10 an hour or $150 an hour, everyone can benefit from what we have accomplished here today. And on a personal level, as a single mom and somebody who's worked with many youth programs, I just know how vital it is to have that knowledge and the know-how to make wise choices.
I think it's important already at a young age to know about financing, and there was a great opportunity to bring my son over here, expose him to this event.
Well, I liked about the event how there was a lot of, like, I guess in a way, new things that I did learn, and how to save up money, put some money aside, keep some money for yourself. It's not about like the grades you make, it's about the hands you shake. That was another thing. That was a good little quote.
It's so important that we educate our young people so that they will have the wisdom and be able to apply the knowledge that they've been given today so that they'll know how to navigate through their financial journey. This would have absolutely benefited me when I was young. I told the story of me buying my first car. I didn't have a clue to what I was doing. Therefore, I ended up with a lemon. I had a high car payment and repairs. So, had I known what I know now, it would have saved me that heartache and money.
Thanks to sponsor donations, The event was held free for the community and included a lunch, scholarship giveaways, and proceeds to benefit the nonprofit youth mentoring organization Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Corpus Christi.
So this is a financial event, and this will help benefit Big Brothers Big Sisters because with our mentors, this is something the mentors are actually also teaching child participants. You know, they're helping them with different developmental assets, different skills in life, and it helps them transfer over to adulthood. But it also benefits Big Brothers Big Sisters because we're gaining more interest, more child participants to sign up, and we're also getting more volunteer recruitment. So it's actually really good all around. The flyer, you guys can definitely sign up. So
I thought the event was fantastic, to be honest with you. This gave you great basic knowledge and a good introduction from all ages. Excellent knowledge for high school kids all the way to adults who really need to jumpstart their finance journey, whether they're at the top of their game or they're just really starting to get the basics and the hang of it. I mean, the fact that it was free and I can come from a different city and be able to engage and learn about what it means to expand my knowledge of my finances, even better. So as far as how young people need to learn about their finances, think about it this way. I graduated high school in 2003. I got one class on how to manage a checkbook. Imagine if I would have gotten an entire semester or an entire year. This jumpstart about learning how to manage your checkbook, how to manage your checking account, how to refinance, how to buy a house, how to pay for college. These are instrumental in the world we live in. We're dealing with inflation, we're dealing with COVID, we're dealing with unannounced things that are happening all over the place. If the children that are coming out of school now can come out prepared, just one leg ahead, you have no idea how important these lessons can be just to get them prepared for the world. And Finance 101 from Leadership Class 50 is going to get them there. Absolutely the best class I attended.
Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News, Corpus Christi, Texas.
Thanks, Kathleen. Korea is the subject of the week's edition of Embassy Files. Eagle News correspondent Arlene Ocampo explains the Hanbok experience to us.
안녕하세요. Contemporary fashion and art are stars at the all-in-one Hanbok experience presented by the Korean Cultural Center here in DC in partnership with Korea's Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism and the Korea Craft and Design Foundation. Hanbok is a traditional Korean attire, also considered formal attire for the Korean people, both men and women. But with the very fickle fashion mood and all its ins and outs, Korean designers update the styles using different materials and forms. Pop stars, fashion designers, and tourists have been sporting this reinvention, even for everyday use. The Hanbok Wave exhibition includes collaborations with technology, art, and pop culture. Wait, there's more! Hanbok meets technology. Introduces a virtual human model named Rosie with her own style of hanbok, allowing people to experience the outfits virtually. Meanwhile, Hanbok Meets Art presents a variety of modern clothing created by top Korean designers using a variation of materials with different types of fabrics. Plus, Hanbok Meets K-pop showcases custom-made clothing worn by K-pop groups Brave Girls and boy band DKB with a digital fashion show projection, banking on spectator reactions when they see their favorite performers on stage in these modernized hanboks. These interesting works of art are on display at the Korean Cultural Center until March 25. Visit washington.dc.korean-culture.org/en for more details. Stay tuned to Eagle News for more from the nation's capital. Arlene Ocampo, Embassy Files, Eagle News.
Kamsahamnida, Arlene. On this week's Oceania at a Glance, residents of New South Wales are still reeling from the historic flooding that recently submerged major parts of the region. Donabel de los Santos reports.
As the weather in New South Wales continues to worsen, constant rain has caused floods in Sydney. During this time of the year, Sydney should already be anticipating a hot summer, but on the contrary, during the last few weeks of February, constant downpour filled Sydney's days. People living in the flooded areas of New South Wales had to face not only inconvenience, but more so fear and peril. Homes and belongings have been destroyed. Around 50,000 people across the affected suburbs of New South Wales and are in the high-risk category have to evacuate their homes to seek higher ground. Same with those living in the northern suburbs and northern beaches. The roads are flooded. Cars are trapped underwater. Public transport has been suspended. Train tracks have been submerged in water, causing delay and even disruption of train services, frustrating Sydney commuters. This has been considered as one of the worst flooding in the region's history. Donabel de los Santos, Oceania at a Glance, Eagle News.
Thanks, Donabel. Still in Australia, residents, community organizations, and the local government in southeast Queensland come together to move past the flooding that affected thousands in the region.
From February 23 to 28, Queensland and New South Wales experienced non-stop heavy rain which caused major flooding in these two states. Communities in the east coast from Maryborough, Queensland to Grafton, New South Wales have been impacted, including many lives.
In the city of Brisbane, an estimated 15,000 homes have been affected. Thousands of people were evacuated as the flood water surged across the east coast of Queensland and the northern part of New South Wales. The flood has reportedly killed 13 people in Queensland and has destroyed thousands of homes in the southeast. The cost of the damage due to the flood is estimated at more than $2.5 billion as it has affected jobs, infrastructures, and homes. Trains and buses have also been disrupted, schools had to close, people were urged to stay home. The suburbs remained without power during and after the flood. The Logan River reached its highest peak since the flooding in 2017. On March 5, the Brisbane City Council organized a cleanup drive called Mad Army 2.0. Over 15,000 volunteers showed up. On the 6th of March, the Australian Defence Force and Council have continued with the drive.
At the moment, most roads are now open, train lines and buses are now available for transport. The Brisbane City Council reassures residents that everyone will be taken care of. Miyako-ong, Oceania at a Glance, Eagle News.
Moving on to other news. In Papua New Guinea, several events were held as the country marked International Women's Day. More on that from Eagle News correspondent Echo Hortaleza Quinola.
I am right now at the scene of the launching of the International Women's Day here at Sir Hubert Murray Stadium. Let's all witness the event. The International Women's Day 2022 theme Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow has been well celebrated in Port Moresby. A morning walk and several exercises started the day led by the Active City Development Program, Japan International Corporation, and other diplomatic corps.
So we are just bringing out all the women, particularly those who do not usually have an opportunity to go to the gym or to go to certain places. So Active City works with these communities to allow them to be a part of the bigger celebration that is going on in the city. We use physical activity to teach change. We just know that when our physical body is healthy, our mind becomes healthy. So it is a program that engages people to action. And it's also the governor of NCD, who is always supportive of the Active City program. And so we're really happy for the family, like a big city coming together today.
United Nations representative delivers a powerful speech on recognizing women's contribution in raise awareness on climate change and women's rights.
So
say to the women of PNG, you have what it takes. You have what it takes to bring a change to the development of this country. When women come into parliament, when they come into government, I believe that the development of this country will accelerate. Women have a place in the economy. Women have a place in climate change. Women have a place in defining how social services can be delivered. You have experienced the challenges yourself, and I believe you have the solutions. So take up the challenge and come in and make a difference.
We should re-understand, recognize the gender equality and women's empowerment importance in Papua New Guinea. Thank you so much for your attention.
The Professional Women's Club hosts a celebration attended by notable women of reputable companies in the capital city. Another highlight of the event, a program at the Ella Beach where stalls of indigenous Papua New Guinean produce, an array of foods and fruits are displayed. Women from different Port Moresby communities parade in colorful Papua New Guinean-made dresses. National Capital District Governor Honorable Powes Sparkop speaks in all these International Women's Day events, along with Japan's Chief Representative Masato Kainuma, United Nations Representative Caroline Nyameyomombe, and Active City Development Program Director Fazila Bazari.
The celebration for the International Women's Day. Let us make it known very clearly that the agenda and the demand and the goal for gender equality is not an alien concept, alien idea, or alien goal and alien vision. It is a goal, it's a demand that is in the constitution of our country. It forms the basis by which we form this country, the independent state of Papua New Guinea, which has brought all these thousands of tribes, 860 languages and cultures and traditions together. Gender equality is paramount and important goal in the formation of the state of Papua New Guinea.
Eko Ortoleza Quinola, Oceania at a glance, Eagle News.
Thanks, Echo. In Canada, International Women's Day was celebrated with a look at some of the powerful women in the country's history. Eagle News correspondent Joshua Santillana brings us that story.
On Tuesday, March 8th, Toronto, as well as the rest of the world, celebrated International Women's Day to commemorate the achievements women have made throughout history and bring attention to the issues women are facing in the present. For International Women's Day, the City of Toronto launched new content for the Herstory program, highlighting stories from powerful historical women. This year, Herstory features Jean Lum, the first Chinese-Canadian woman and restaurateur in the Order of Canada, Verna Johnston, Anishinaabe author and activist, Salome Bay, award-winning musician and actor, E. Pauline Johnson, Mohawk artist and entertainer, and Mary Ann Shad Carey, anti-sexism activist and anti-racism abolitionist. Modern-day reality is that gender-based discrimination remains rampant in our communities. According to the Government of Canada, women in Canada who work full-time earn on average only 87 cents to every dollar earned by men. They also continue to be underrepresented in leadership and executive positions, occupying just 23% of board positions. One of many examples of gender-based oppression women are facing within the province is evident in the fight to repeal Bill 124, a wage suppression legislation for nurses in Ontario. The Canadian Nurses Association's research in 2019 shows that 91% of regulated nurses in Canada are female, proving nursing remains a female-dominated profession. Charlene Stewart, president of SEIU Healthcare, brings attention to and recognizes Bill 124 as not just an anti-worker legislation, but an anti-women wage restraint law. Gender-based violence remains one of the major issues of gender inequality. A 2018 Government of Canada study shows that women are more likely than men to be sexually assaulted or experience unwanted sexual behavior. The Canadian Women's Foundation also states that racialized women are taken less seriously when reporting their experiences with violence. Not only that, women with disabilities are 3 times more likely to experience violence than women living without disabilities. The Ontario Native Women's Association also states that Indigenous women are 16 times more likely to be murdered than non-Indigenous women. In Toronto, International Women's Day is being celebrated with the theme of Revolutionary Love for All, acknowledging and recognizing not only the achievements of inspirational women, but also the oppression and discrimination women continue to face, and the work of justice that must be done towards positive change. Joshua Santillana, Eagle News, Toronto.
Thanks, Joshua. Everyone, it's time for Glow Up. Now, do your eyebrows need touching up? Here's some advice from beauty enthusiast Bernadette Franchini.
Hey friends, notice anything different? Well, I was gonna say missing, but they're actually there. They're just less defined. That's right. So ever since we started Glowing Up, I've received many requests from my friends and viewers on how to draw eyebrows. So I thought, let me share it with you all. But before I start drawing my eyebrows, remember, I am not a makeup artist, I'm not a professional. I am sharing my personal experience with you on how I glow up. And that's what this segment is all about. We're all on this journey to becoming the most beautiful version of ourselves, both inside and out. Now, there are many different types of makeup that we can use to draw our eyebrows. There are tinted eyebrow gels, colored pencils, wax, powders, even pomades. Many years ago, I relied solely on pencils, and let's just say I was tweezer happy. But those years are long gone. I do a little bit more to my eyebrows so that it adds like volume to it. So let's get started. So for today's video, I will be using the following materials. I will be using a double-sided tool where one side is the spoolie and the other is an angled brush. I'll also be using an eye primer, but you can also use eyebrow wax. I'll be drawing my eyebrows with a pencil and pomade to fill it in. And lastly, I will use concealer to clean up the edges. I've already cleaned up my eyebrows and trimmed them, prepared to draw a fuller look. And as you can see, without drawing my eyebrows, they are thin, sparse, and I do shave off the ends since they grow out sparingly. After cleaning my eyebrows, I start with an eye primer. I'll then take the spoolie and brush my eyebrows up and over. So up and over. Some of the hairs are quite stubborn, so this is where wax will probably come in handy. Afterwards, I outline my eyebrows and draw the shape I'm trying to achieve. I start right above the inside corner of my eye on the brow bone and draw to the underside of the arch and extend towards the end of the brow. You might wonder, where is the end of the brow? Well, just imagine an imaginary line from the outside corner of your nose to the outside corner of your eye. Right at the brow bone is where you want it to end. Next, I take an angled brush and dip it into the pomade. I don't start filling here in the front because your brush will have a lot of pomade or a lot of material on it. So you want to start in the middle towards the arch and blend because you want to go from lighter to darker. And I just fill in my brows and take the spoolie and brush it up to lighten the area with a more natural look. And then lastly, I use the angled brush and dip it into the concealer and line the bottom of my brows to give it a more sharp and defined brow. I just blend the concealer from here. And here you go. I'll just finish up the rest of my makeup. And here's the final look. I hope you enjoyed today's segment, but before I let you go, let me share this quote with you from the eyebrow queen herself, Anastasia Soare. She said, "I think an eyebrow could change the way you feel. It changes everything about your confidence." I definitely agree with her. Again, thank you so much for spending your time with me. If you have any other beauty-related topics you'd like us to share, comment below. I am Bernadette Regini. Glow Up, Eagle News.
Thanks, Bernadette. I love your eyebrows. And thank you all for watching. View, like, share our other shows: City Limits with Alan Basayahe, Connected with Dr. David, Take a Seat and Join Us with Anna Kui, Play Date with Mike Hudson and Friends, plus Journey, Stories of Filipinos in Canada with Kathleen Cruz. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Eagle News Live. I am Rose Papa Angeles. Happy weekend, everyone.